Good evening, members of the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Community Development Committee. This is Elsa Brown, Development Manager in the Housing Department, and I will be presenting this request to amend Agreement Number 9660-22-HO for Housing Contracts Administration Services for the Housing Department. On February 25th, 2022, the city issued request for proposal number H022-92 for on-call housing contract consulting services for both city and Oxnard Housing Authority funded projects. Bidders were asked to respond with a proposal for all or one of the following on-call services: environmental compliance, labor compliance monitoring of affordable housing developments and capital improvement projects, monitoring of projects with long-term project performance periods, project management services, oversight and administration of city and Oxnard Housing Authority contracts. The city received 2 responsive bids, one from Rainey Planning and Management, Inc., and one from Michael Baker International. The city elected to select 2 bidders and executed contracts with each bidder in June 2022 for labor compliance monitoring services. However, Michael Baker's contract also includes environmental and federal Section 3 compliance services. Rainey's contract does not include these services. The contract amount for Michael Baker is an amount not to exceed $120,000. The contract amount for the Rainey contract is for an amount not to exceed $80,000. Staff anticipates that the following projects will go into construction over the next 3 years and require labor, Section 3, and environmental compliance services. The Edding Road project, which is a city-funded project and will require labor compliance services estimated at $71,000. The Cypress Place project, which is also a city-funded project, will require labor compliance services estimated at $69,000. The Las Cortes project, which is an Oxnard Housing Authority funded project, will require labor compliance services estimated at $69,000. The Althea project, also a Housing Authority funded project, will require labor and environmental compliance services estimated at $89,000. Gabriel's House, a city-funded project, which will require labor compliance services estimated at $18,000. Second and B Shelter, a city-funded project, which will require labor compliance services estimated at $27,000. On-call home consulting services, which will consist of environmental compliance for future home-funded projects estimated at $6,000. On-call CDBG consulting services, which will consist of environmental compliance services for future CDBG-funded projects, also estimated at $6,000. On-call OHA consulting services, which will consist of environmental compliance services for future Oxnard Housing Authority funded projects, estimated at $6,000. The total cost for compliance services is $361,000. The contract amount for the existing Michael Baker contract is for an amount not to exceed $120,000. A contract increase of $361,000 is needed for Michael Baker to provide the labor and environmental compliance services for projects expected to go into construction over the next 3 years. The new proposed not to exceed amount under this first amendment to the Michael Baker contract is $481,000. State and federal grants are available to cover the expenses of the labor and environmental compliance services. A summary of funds available for these services is provided below. Permanent local housing allocation funds in the amount of $27,000. Community Development Block Grant funds in the amount of $51,600. Home funds in the amount of $118,400. Housing Authority Capital funds in the amount of $64,000. Housing Authority Central funds in the amount of $100,000. Staff recommends that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Community Development Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute a first amendment to Agreement 9660-22-HO with Michael Baker International to increase the not-to-exceed amount on their contract from $120,000 to $481,000. And the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Authority of the City of Oxnard approve and authorize the use of up to $164,000 in Housing Authority funds to pay for housing contracts administration services under Agreement 9660-22-HO. Thank you. Staff will be available to answer any questions that you may have.